I know certain doctors who would actually switch. I've met many docs who are emergency physicians, and they switch from doing ER care to wound care. So I really think it's because of how rewarding this subspecialty is, and how we really have then that time to interact with our patients and be, right? When we all opted to choose to decide caring for patients as our career, that is what we all envisioned. And this subspecialty really allows all of us to do that.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians. To overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be, visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone. My guest today is the Dean of the Dr. William M. Scholl College of Podiatric Medicine at the Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science. She joined the Scholl College as an assistant professor in 2004. Currently, she's a tenured professor in the Department of Podiatric Medicine and Surgery, where she has taught for over 20 years. So let's hear my conversation with Dr. Stephanie Wu. What a pleasure it is for me today to be having a conversation with Dr. Stephanie Wu, who is an internationally renowned podiatrist, and I am so much looking forward to our conversation today. Stephanie, I've heard so much about you, and I'm looking forward to learning what I can. So thank you for being here, and welcome to Prescriptions for Success.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the conversation, and as we always do, Stephanie, I like to begin at the beginning. Now, I know you were by birth a Canadian citizen, is that correct?
I am.
You still are. So
yes.
Does that mean you have dual citizenship, or?
It does.
Okay, that's kind of rare. Okay. Well, why don't we start the conversation at that point? How did you happen to decide that you were going to move to the U.S.?
Well, I actually came here for school. So before podiatry, I had a life in marketing. I was selling, batteries for cellular phones. So if you ever need advice on batteries, cadmium, nickel metal hydride, lithium, I know all about batteries. And I also sold fax machines. So I know this dates me a bit, but I know a lot about technology because I used to be in sales and marketing for that.
I'll be darned. And so how did you get hooked into podiatry?
It's a very interesting story. So my sister at the time wanted to, I think, get into DO school. So she was taking the MCAT and she wanted me to take it with her. So I actually flew back and didn't really study. I took the exam. I was the moral support. And at the time, because I hadn't applied to any schools, and for, I think, maybe it was $450 at the time, you get to mark off maybe 3 schools. Mm-hmm. And on the side, there were a list of places you could apply to for free. And I remember just checking them off going, well, I'm paying this money. I might as well. One of them was podiatry. I did not even know how to pronounce it. I looked at it, went Podia, and I was like, well, it was free. Let me mark that. And I
Oh,
literally did not think anything of it.
this
So
is a
I
great
went back
story.
to, yeah, I went back to working, and maybe a couple months later, I got a letter from one of the podiatry schools saying, Stephanie, you did really well on your MCAT. I had it 33. This was back when it scored differently now, and they said, "Hey, you scored pretty well. Are you
Hmm.
interested in podiatric medicine?" And just at that time, I was feeling that glass ceiling with respect to work. So I thought, well, why not pursue a career where I get to be my own boss? I get to make the shots. And so I gave it a try. But I did not at the time even know what the profession was about. I had to learn about the profession, and it really turned out to be a blessing.
That's very interesting. And so in your own family or in your own close network, there were not other physicians and surgeons and medical types like that.
That is
Am I right?
correct. Yes, that
Yeah.
is correct. I do have nephews now who are also in the medical field. One's a radiologist, the
Yeah.
other one's a pediatrician. But prior to that, no, I was the first one.
Wow. What a serendipitous story that is. And so any particular reason why you gravitated toward podiatry, you think?
I almost feel that profession found me. If you
Yeah, it
speak
sounds like.
to, yeah, if you speak to a lot of the podiatrists, they've had some incident, something happened where I think the profession found them, or even other medical specialties. In my case, it truly found me. I was worried because remember my background, right? Sales and marketing. I don't
Hmm.
know how well I would do. And I studied really hard, and it turned out to be a very rewarding profession. I've been to 38 countries to lecture because of my expertise in
Yeah.
podiatric medicine and surgery. And it's a career that I never even dreamed of.
I think that may be the most fascinating story that I've heard, and I forget we've done well over 200 episodes on this podcast. But as to the question of why did you get into podiatry or medicine or surgery or whatever it happens to be, not a single soul has said, "Oh, it was an accident. I just fell into it as if it were a hole waiting to swallow me up." But it sounds like that's kind of exactly what you went through.
It really was. So me having that feeling, I want to give back. I want to help others. I want to inspire students. That is so true for me because of what happened. And I'm also the first to tell people it's okay to change careers. It's okay to
Hmm.
change your mind and be open to opportunities that come your way.
Really good advice. There was one other thing that sort of stood out to me as I looked through your biographical information, and that is there was a statement in there, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read somewhere that you said that your decision to apply for U.S. citizenship was rather strongly connected with September 11th.
It was. So I've always had my green card. And I never really even wanted to become a U.S. citizen. And my apologies, I don't mean to offend those out there.
Sure, we
The way I
understand.
kind of saw it is, I look at the politicians, I'm like, I'm not sure. So as someone with a green card holder, right, I do not get to vote. I do not get to work in the VA and help those who serve the country. That was the downside. But I was always okay with it. I grew up in
Uh-huh.
Canada. At the time, I identified well with Canada. And I was moved, though. So I graduated in 2001, and I ended up doing my residency at Innova / Georgetown. And
Hmm.
residency, as you know, starts in July. So for the first 2 months, it was fine. And I remember this distinctly because I was doing my anesthesia rotation. And all of a sudden, right, we were doing actually liposuction of all surgeries. And I didn't know because I was in there assisting with the case. And I come out and the world had stopped. And nothing I had ever encountered. And I sat there and I was stunned, thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do? And I remember, I didn't know that because we were fairly close to the Pentagon. They went into action immediately. They were clearing out patients who...
Well, you were that close then?
Yes, I was that close.
Wow.
They were clearing out patients who were not urgently sick. So if the patients were able to be discharged, right, there was this, because we were making beds available for those who may have needed it from the Pentagon. People went into action immediately. But I'll tell you, Randy, what moved me the most, it was the lines of people, and you can't see, but tears are swelling up in my eyes as I repeat this. People just lined up for miles and miles and miles, wanting to help, wanting to donate their blood, wanting to do whatever they could to help others. And I stayed back because I actually had to give grand rounds on the next day. But everything, all the preparation went out the window. I wanted to help. I wanted to be part of that. And that was the moment that I knew that I was ready to be a U.S. citizen, that I was... And hence my tie to the story. After that, within 30 days, I applied for my U.S. citizenship. I became a U.S. citizen at the end of my residency, so in 2004. And boy, did I prepare. I think George W. Bush was president at the time. I studied so hard, I knew what the W stood for. Don't ask me what it is now. I don't remember anymore. But yeah, that's how hard I studied for my exam.
That's a really powerful story. When I look back on those days, and I'm really taking the conversation in a strange direction here, I remember in the aftermath, it was hard to run into anybody. In fact, I don't think anybody would have admitted it, even if they wanted to. But everybody was really proud to be an American at that point. And we were all really pulling in the same direction. We were all on the same side. It's quite a difference now, don't you think?
Yes.
I mean, what happened to us? I mean, I'm taking this into territory that's got nothing to do with being a physician, but I'm interested, because you were so affected by that event, I'm interested to hear what you think has led us to where we are.
It's one of these things where, as American, and I'm proud, it was something that I consciously did. A lot of Americans are blessed because they are that by birth. And to consciously choose to be one and study to become one, it's one where I think when the need comes, when the need arrives, Americans come together. We are proud of our country. We will donate whatever it takes, time, money, blood, what have you, and to really embrace what makes us special and strong and unique. And times have evolved, obviously, but I think that sense is still there. People have maybe strong opinions, and as they should, right? We have that right to express it. But I think that innate protection of the country, the innate love is there regardless of other things that may come our way.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but first, I'd like to share a message from Navigate. After spending years in the financial sector, Navigate has met lots of clients with all kinds of student loan issues. They were confused, they were overwhelmed by the doublespeak and the overly complex forms, and especially the deliberately misleading statements from loan servicer representatives. Navigate recognized the chaos in the student loan industry and immediately brought clarity and real solutions. If you'd like to flip the script on student debt, visit www.flipthescript.loan/MD-coaches to schedule a call with Navigate. They'll tailor a plan specifically for your unique situation and work with you until the loan is paid off. What do you have to lose besides the stress of student loan debt?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our conversation in just a moment, but first, I want to mention a sponsor who has been with us almost since our beginning. Physician Outlook is a splendid publication created for physicians by physicians. Originally a print and online magazine, it's now a dynamic digital-only platform using storytelling, humor, and community building to help physicians and surgeons reconnect with the art of medicine. Physician Outlook celebrates the entire healthcare team, including nurses, nurse practitioners, and PAs who value physician-led care. As artificial intelligence and corporate overreach threatens the human connection, Physician Outlook remains committed to the sacred physician-patient relationship. Beyond storytelling, Physician Outlook takes action on causes that matter. So join the movement, connect, laugh, be inspired. Visit physicianoutlook.com today. And now let's get back to our interview. Let's get back to your profession and something that I'm really interested in because it was an intense interest of mine during the last more than a decade of my medical career, and that is your interest in wound healing. How did that come about?
Again, it kind of got thrown my way. As a student, I was first introduced to wound healing. And I always joked and said, it's probably because my last name starts with a W. By the time they get to the end of the alphabet, the cool rotations were taken up, so they sent me. But it was fascinating because that's where I learned that having these wounds, right? We all take cuts. I'm sure everybody listening, you and I, Randy, we've all had cuts and bruises, right? And we take for granted that it heals. But in millions of people in the United States alone, they don't heal. They suffer through these open wounds that drain. Sometimes there is an odor. It gets embarrassing when they walk in the room, right? These people, and not only these patients, but their families, their loved ones, their caretakers, having to take them to the doctors. And it's week after week after week because in a lot of these cases, it takes 12 weeks perhaps for these wounds to heal. And there's certain wounds that don't heal. And there are also other pathologies where you heal one wound and they sprout another wound somewhere else. And sometimes when these open wounds lead to bone infections and we have no choice but to do the amputations for patients, it's heartbreaking. The other things I've seen is a lot of hardworking people who are so busy that they don't have time to go to the doctors, have no idea that they have diabetes, and to come to the hospital infected and having that difficult conversation of, hey, I am really sorry, but I have to cut half your foot off because it's all infected, and have them not even realize that they have such severe diabetes, they no longer have sensation to their feet. It's a very unique type of niche, if I type of specialty, but it's very rewarding. You bond with these patients because we see them week after week, right? Most doctors, they'll see patients maybe once a year for their annual physical, perhaps once a quarter. In limb salvage, wound healing, we see these patients on a weekly basis. I see them more than I do my own family. You get to know everything about them, and that bond that you form is very, very unique instead. And also, this is something that a lot of countries across the globe don't quite know, right? For example, I was talking to doctors from Japan. They don't know what to do when their patients have wounds. And lo and behold, right, this is a pandemic. It's a global issue. And so these patients end up getting a below knee amputation because they have these wounds that would not heal. Whereas because of podiatry, I learn all these different levels of amputation from toe to, half the foot. There's different levels involved and what you should do with the tendons to make sure that it's balanced. They're very much interested in learning more. And, it's more than Japan. I got to lecture all over the Middle East, on Asia. And so it turned out to be a very rewarding, unique specialty.
Yeah, I guess I must have had a similar approach to wound care myself. That's the way I finished my career, having done general and vascular surgery for many decades. But a hospital administrator told me he wanted to start a wound care center and would I be interested in being at the head of that. And I decided to take him up on it, not really having any idea where I was headed, but it turned out to be fascinating. It turned out to be rewarding, and I have met clearly some of the finest people that I've had the pleasure to meet during my medical career, attending educational meetings and social meetings with people that have a similar interest, the SAWC and others. The response I come across from just about everyone is exactly what you said, and that is there is a level of personal reward that I just don't think you can find in any other specialty. Would you agree?
I absolutely do. It's very, very unique, very rewarding, and you become very invested because these are more than patients. They feel like family. You see them that often.
Absolutely. And in my case, where we were surrounded by a substantially rural population, I would get vegetables from people's gardens and cakes that they baked and things of that nature. So did you experience anything like that in your own world in the wound care community?
Yes, absolutely. It's, these patients always think of you and they'll bake little cakes for you and bring vegetables. Yeah. The other thing that I like about this subspecialty is it's true interprofessionalism. You're best friends with the infectious disease because a lot of times the patients do get infected, right? We work hand in hand with the vascular surgeons because without blood flow, the wounds will not heal. You work with the endocrinologist to make sure that their diabetes under control and these diabetes educators. It's, if you look at SAWC, and it's truly an interprofessional type of subspecialty where we respect each other, recognize each other for the expertise that we all bring to the table with the one goal to not only get these patients' wounds healed, but to ultimately save their lives.
That is so true. I was so impressed when I first began to attend the professional meetings in wound care at the tremendous breadth of medical specialties that are represented. I mean, everybody from the vascular surgeons to the radiologists, I have found with an interest in wound care. Has that been your experience as well?
Yes, absolutely. And certain I know certain doctors who would actually switch. I've met many docs who are emergency physicians, and they switch from doing ER care to wound care. So I really think it's because of how rewarding this subspecialty is, and how we really have then that time to interact with our patients and be right when we all opted to choose to decide caring for patients as our career. That is what we all envisioned, and this subspecialty really allows all of us to do that.
That particular choice in focusing on wound care has, I know, had a delightful impact on your own life. And one of the things that I stumbled across in doing my research on you is that you received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Podiatry magazine. That had to have been a thrill. Can you talk about that a little bit?
It was, I am so honored. And admittedly, though, I was the first female podiatrist to win the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2000.
Yeah, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm aware of the fact that the ladies have been left out far too long. But please go ahead with your story.
Exactly. There are so many, female physicians, female podiatrists that inspired me, and they should have won. So I am deeply honored, but I fully recognize that I was very fortunate, because there should have been others that to receive that award well before me.
Well, let's just say it's going to take a while to get all the way through the list, because from what I had read about you, I can't imagine that there is anybody more deserving, and I'm sure that it was quite a thrill for you. I'm interested to know a lot of the people that I speak to on this show who have been in practice for a while and have enjoyed quite a bit of success find themselves having moved away from their clinical responsibilities. And I'm wondering, are you getting any clinical time these days, or have you become an administrator? What's your life like at this point?
So I became dean of the Dr. William M. Scholl College of Podiatric Medicine at Rosalind Franklin University in 2019. And it was a responsibility. It was an honor to be considered, but it was also a responsibility that it took me a little while to consider, because I very much enjoy clinical care. I very much enjoy student teaching, patient interaction, and I also enjoy doing research. I'm one of these who's always had a curious mind, right? Hey, why do we do things this way versus that way? And I knew that taking on the dean role had a lot of associated administrative responsibilities, and I wasn't sure whether I would be good at it. And in 2019, I decided to take it on, but admittedly, before I even had the opportunity to get acclimated, COVID happened. And yes, as terrible as it was, it helped me solidify. So initially when I transitioned, I was very unsure about myself. So I was very fortunate, because the provost was the previous dean of my school. So I had her mentorship available. I had her on speed dial, and I bothered her probably more. She's very kind. And so I probably bothered her more than I should, because everything I did, is this okay? Is that okay? Did I think about everything? I was very unsure. But when it came to COVID, everything went out the window, all the previous rules, right? Because this was something that was unprecedented. Nobody dealt with it. I really had to go with my gut. So we kind of heard, we knew COVID was coming. And so I had my department chairs, the faculty, we were gearing up towards online teaching. So it was something we planned. And I recall really in mid-January of 2020, I knew that it was upsetting our students. Our students were telling me that they were not sleeping at night. They were very much worried, and so much so that I knew that it was time. I talked to my faculty. They were ready. And we were the first school to convert to an online, right? To make sure that the students knew that they had a safe environment to learn, to study, and they did not need to worry about their health. And the other schools eventually followed suit. And so it was something that allowed, as unfortunate as it was something that helped me realize that, hey, maybe I have what it takes to be a good dean. Maybe I have that foresight. Maybe I have that leadership ability that I perhaps didn't recognize myself to do this right. And to, given how challenging the situation was, to manage it as best we can to provide a safe and resounding learning environment for the students.
I can't think of a test, an exam that is more likely to test a person's fitness to be in the job that you have, and clearly it has worked out for you very well, and for your podiatry school as well. I might add, I'm sure you got many hundreds of really delighted students that are now happily engaged in productive practices at this point, and I'm sure that must give you a good feeling as well.
It does. And I kind of wanted to add, because you did ask me about clinical practice. I am still in clinical practice. It's nowhere near the capacity that I used to, but I still conduct clinical research. I still see patients. I have students join me. I really enjoy that part of clinical teaching. And I also want students to know that, hey, you can, if you want to, be able to do it all. You are able to maintain, and for them to kind of appreciate that their dean kind of still knows her stuff a bit, even though she spends a lot of time in meetings.
So I'll put you on the spot a little bit here. Do you think
Sure.
that all faculty people, no matter what their station in the academic rank is, should at least devote some time to teaching? I do.
I completely agree. We do have some research faculty who do have protected time for research, but they teach our students. It may only be at, say, 10 or 15% capacity, but to be able to serve as that mentor, it is so important for future generations, right? When we were young, we looked up to those who taught us and inspire us. And for us now to serve in that position as role models and inspirations, I think it's a true honor to be placed in. Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more. Stephanie, I've really enjoyed our conversation up to this point, and what I'd like to do at this point is give you an opportunity to take the floor for yourself. So I'm going to close my mic, and audience, Dr. Stephanie Wu is going to share her personal prescriptions for success.
When we talk about personal prescriptions for success, there are 5 things that come to my mind. And I'll summarize these takeaways using vowels: A, E, I, O, and U as an acronym, just so it's easy to remember. So A stands for availability, right? One of the keys to success is really to make yourself available. Make yourself available to others, and the opportunities will come your way. I'll give you an example. When I was the chief resident at Innova, Dr. David Armstrong was lecturing at the FDA. and he offered to come lecture to the residents that evening. However, the FDA is in Maryland and we were in Virginia, and he needed a ride. And I could have delegated to I was chief at the time, I could have delegated to a younger resident, but I thought, this is scut work. I don't want to. They're here to learn. So I thought as chief, I made myself available to drive out to Maryland. Now, for those of you who are familiar with DC traffic, it's horrible. It was probably 2 hours out there, 2 hours back. And remember, I did that trip twice, right? Once to get him, bring him back, and then drop him off again. But by making myself available, that gave me the opportunity, because 3 months later, he offered me a job on behalf of Scholl College, where I'm at now. It led to where I am today. And had I delegated that to a younger resident, or not made myself available to help out, that opportunity would not have existed. So my advice, make yourself available to help out other attendings, help out nurses, help out your co-residents, your fellow students. Not only will you learn from the experience, you will be the one that comes to their minds when sometime down the line, there's an opening in their practice or a special opportunity. Making yourself available will go a long way. E stands for enthusiasm, right? We all know life for most of us, it's not a walk in the park. It's full of ups and downs, all these unexpected bumps, right? Maybe you didn't match with the residency you wanted, or the hospital or practice administrators are making you do things a certain way that is inefficient. Payers will deny payments for things that they shouldn't have. Life's full of curveballs. But, as the saying goes, what doesn't kill you will only make you stronger. And success is walking from failure to failure with enthusiasm. I stands for inspiration. As you progress through, whether you're studying, residency training, right? Eventually, when you're going to be part of a practice, never forget the inspiration that led you down this long, arduous path to become a doctor. Your strong desire to help and care for others, always cherish that and always remind yourself that. Because as a doctor, it's whatever specialty or subspecialty you're in, it's an enormous privilege to touch and change patients' lives, right? But also have fair expectations. Know that some people will not get better despite your very best efforts. Complications will occur even to the most skilled and most cautious. But it's really the little things, like the smiles that we see on patients' faces when we help them, right? Randy mentioned, and I had the same experience, our patients bringing in the little vegetables from their gardens, these cake and muffins. We're not doing it for the cake and muffins. It's the fact that they remember you and they think of you and they want to share their lives with you. That continues to inspire us. Don't lose, right? I know life will get in the way, but do not lose your empathy, your compassion and care for the very people whom you work so hard to serve. Because in the end, that's what really matters. O stands for opportunity. Recognize and appreciate that the studying, the residency, all this is your opportunity to learn. When others generously extend these opportunities, you want to act. Seize that moment when those opportunities come your way, because you may never see these opportunities again. I once invited a student to scrub in on a Liz Frank's case. So it was a case where the midfoot area got completely dislocated. The student, I was a little surprised, and he declined. He said, he had another commitment. It's 5:00, time for him to go home. And so I was fine. And it really wasn't until I bumped into that student years later that he expressed regret. He told me at the time, he thought, hey, he's a student. He's going to get opportunities to see so many of these types of fractures because he had to go through residency, but he never did. He really regretted declining his one chance to see how to fixate that fracture. And, hearing that you want to learn from his mistake, seize that opportunity, right? Remember, you want to seize the opportunity of a lifetime. In that lifetime of that opportunity, you may wait, but time may not, and you never know what may or may not come your way again. So this brings us to you. U is for the untiring hard work. There is no magic formula. Success is really based on hard work. There's no doubt in my mind, for those of you who are listening, you're all used to working hard. And you're probably thinking, hey, once you get past to a certain stage, as students, you're thinking, oh gosh, all these exams. Once I get to residency, it's going to be a lot easier. And for those of you in residency, you may think, oh gosh, once I become an attending, things would be easier. Actually, no, as students, we didn't really appreciate how much time we had off. Because during residency, you're on call. You have to take these calls. And as attendings, once you're done seeing patients, you're there doing all these charting and billing that actually takes up a lot of your time. And also know that, with respect to board exams, it doesn't end. You would think, oh gosh, I'm done with exams as a student. No, there's certification exams. Even after you're certified, you have to get recertified. And as you progress through life, there's no protected time for studying. Being a doctor means juggling these exams while seeing patients, doing surgeries, being on call, and having a family, right? But always remember this: the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. Having persistence, tenacity, it will enable you to be successful as a student, be successful as a resident, be successful as an attending. And always, keep these in mind as you progress through life. And also take the time to thank those around you. You would not be where you are today without the support of your family, friends, loved ones, your teachers, your professors. Be mindful of that. Be grateful of the wonderful surroundings you're in, and have that resilience as you can continue your path towards your ultimate goal.
I think that may be the best recipe that I've ever heard. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. There's a lot of wisdom in there, and I'm truly grateful that you had the opportunity to be here with us and share your wisdom, Stephanie. It's been a lot of fun.
Randy, you are so kind. I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us reach more listeners by leaving a rating and a review, especially on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if your app doesn't have that option, just leave us an email, or even better, a voicemail through SpeakPipe at www.mymdcoaches.com/podcast. Also, please help us by becoming a Patreon member. That link is in the show notes. And we hope you'll also follow our companion podcast, Life-Changing Moments with Dr. Dale Waxman. Special thanks to our producer, Craig Clausen, our promotions manager, Mariana Rodabaugh, and to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.